Fuck, I forgot to hit record. I went and checked this Aetheryte. It said that it's not responding, so I went and checked a smaller one just in case it was like one of those things where I had to get all the smaller ones before I can get the bigger one, and it didn't work either. So I can't do my normal thing of getting every single Aetheryte in the area to get prepared for me for when I'm actually ready to start doing the quest. Instead, I just gotta do the quest as normal like it wants me to do, and then I can get to the Aetheryte attuning afterwards. So, onward I go. City of the First. The Crystal Exarch has a request for you. What is that?
White oak chest gear coffer. A polished oak chest gear coffer with lavish filigree that suggests a valuable piece of attire lies within.
Chest gear type determined by current job or class at time of opening. Epic. Let's do this shit. What do you fucking want from me, you son of a bitch? Now, a full and frank discussion in the privacy of my own study would see— oh, fuck. Would seem— this is why I have this— to be in order. But I think our conversation would be more meaningful were you first to gain a firmer grasp of the situation here. To that end, I would like you to visit a few of the Crystarium's civic leaders and glean something of this world and its predicament. As you can see, our Aetheryte Plaza is just over here. As you can see, this path will take you directly to the Aetheryte, a convenience with which I am sure you are only too familiar. Being the rightful object of my summoning spell, you should in theory be able to reach all the way back along your etheric trail and find a connection in the source, believe it or not. I strongly suggest you complete this attunement before venturing any further. I tried. After you've done so, walk up the steps next to the Aetheryte and head to the left to arrive in the crystalline mean. This is where you'll find our collective of crafters and gatherers, as well as their spokeswoman, Catalyst, one of the people I should like you to meet. Another is Morin. To reach him and his cabinet of curiosity, you'll want to avoid the aforementioned steps, take the exit on the left, and simply continue straight along and down until you come to the large doors at the end of the path. The third and final person I would like you to meet is Bragi, our man in charge of trade and distribution. He is to be found in the markets, which you can access from the opposite side of the Aetheryte Plaza. In seeking out each of my colleagues, you will visit the major districts of the city and hopefully gain a feel for the place. I trust my directions were simple enough. To the right and down the where now? My apologies, I forget how confusing the Crystarium can be for newcomers. Not to worry, I'm sure you'll soon become accustomed to its twists and turns. In all honesty, the true challenge may be in finding the right way to approach its citizens. As you discovered during your encounter with the captain, the people of this world are unaware of the existence of other stars, and will struggle to accept the truth of your origin. That being the case, when they ask whence you hail, as they inevitably will, I suggest you claim to share a homeland with the Crystal Exarch. There is an unspoken rule here about peering too deeply into that particular mystery. When you've finished making the rounds, pray meet me in the large courtyard at the center of the town. Until then, bye. I guess. The fucking rude-ass bastard just walked right the hell away. Let's go. First things first. Attune! By focusing your senses, you detect the flow of vastly distant currents in aether. Your connection to these energies is faint but stable, and should allow teleportation to Aetherites in the source. Script exchange. Oh boy. Oh, no. My new home. the crafting. I can hear the crafting. It's haunting me already. You have attuned yourself to all the Aetheryte shards in the Crystarium. Lakeland is now accessible as an Aethernet destination.
I don't know where the fuck Lakeland is.
I need to go. Hold on. I need to. Cabinet of Curiosity. Moren. Excuse me, miss. Are you recently come to the city, perchance? I'm quite familiar with our civic rules, you see, and, well... What I mean to ask is, have you brought any books with you? A rumpled scroll even, a scrap of scribbled-on parchment. My apologies. Literature is something of an obsession of mine, as well as a profession. Librarian Morin, at your service. This humble collection is known as the Cabinet of Curiosity. As your powers of perception have likely informed you, my colleagues and I are responsible for curating all manners of tomes, documents, and other vehicles for the written word. As horrific as the loss of life and land brought by the flood unquestionably was, the damage to recorded knowledge was no less catastrophic. We few do all we can to preserve what wisdom survived. But tell me, what brings you to the cabinet today? Looking for any title in particular? Mayhap a spot of academic research? Oh, so you've been interested in modern history. Splendid. A thorough review of recent events can often yield novel perspectives. I quite agree. If you would prefer something visual to accompany the account, then I think I have an illustrated history book for children somewhere. Just a moment, I'll fetch it for you. Can't wait for it to show his voice, and it's just like nowhere near. And here we are. Would you like to pull up a chair and make yourself more comfortable? On with the lesson then. Oh, me? Hi. A 100 years ago, or near enough to the matter, or near enough not to matter, villains known as the Warriors of Light slew the Shadowkeeper, the Steward of Darkness. In the wake of this tainted deed, light began to pour onto the world as if from unseen cracks. It pooled and swelled without cease until the day an enormous blinding wave rose up and swept across our star. We called this calamity the Flood of Light. Everything it touched was leached of life and vigor, leaving naught behind but a luminous wasteland. Yet just when it seemed that all would be lost, a savior appeared before us. The Oracle of Light. She stood twixt us and approaching doom, and by her power did she stay the flood. Thus was Norvant, and Norvant alone spared the fate of erasure. Tragedy would, however, arrive in another form. From the blasted emptiness descended a horrors of a strange and terrible aspect to bedevil the few folk who had survived. These sin-eaters were light incarnate, and their fulgent presence stole the night from northern sky. Even now, they circle the remaining bastions of civilization, ever on the hunt for us. ever hungering for our flesh. And thus did the world become what it is. Should you ever wish to hear the tale again, I would be glad to retell it for you. Or you would rather I speak of other matters, that too would be my pleasure. I should be glad of the company. Your exchange with Morin has taught you about the flood of light. The contents of a book may be immutable, yet depending upon one's perspective, the lessons one learns may be different indeed. In other words, I am very much in favor of revisiting its story one has already read. No, I'm good. Yep. We go to the area that I said, oh god, no, oh fuck, my new home. And it was just right here. So which one is this? The crystalline mean. Hello there, Catalyst. Or Catless. Oh shit, look, a node! An Allegan node. What are the odds? Rare to see a place so well stocked with goods, isn't it? But not here. I'm going to guess you're new to our fair city. Well, for what it's worth, you've chosen a fine sanctuary. The Exarch can throw up a barrier if the Sin Eaters come knocking. So it's a damn sight safer in here than it is out there. Safer and more civilized too. Thanks to us in the mean. We work together to procure materials and resources and craft the goods which make city life possible. This is the place to visit if you need a coat mended or a kettle forged. I know a man who would love to be here. Just don't go thinking it'll all be handed to you on a plate like those Ulmoran layabouts. Here in the Crystarium, we work for a living. Though I see you're no stranger to honest labor, you don't have that whiff of indolence? You don't have that whiff of indolence about you like some folk I've met. Still, I can't quite pin down your profession. Where is it you're from? The same area the Exarch is from. One of the Exarch's countrymen, you say. I see. Well then, I'll work twice as hard to make you feel welcome. Our city wouldn't even exist if it weren't for him. And any friend of his is a friend of ours. It's really quite incredible when you think about it. They say his grand magic summoned the Crystal Tower into existence, pulled the entire thing out of thin air. It wasn't long before droves of refugees began congregating around its base, desperate for shelter after losing their homes to the flood. And that's how the Crystarium began. At the Exarch's invitation, buildings started going up, and with the help of some curious relics brought forth from the tower, the place gradually expanded into the thriving metropolis you see today. The city's stood here for decades now, yet the eldest among us swear the Exarch looks exactly the same as he did back then. He is indeed a man of many mysteries, but for all his secrecy, he has never yet let us down. So if he, and you, wish to remain silent about your shared homeland, then the folk here will respect your wish for privacy. I am, however, more than a little curious to see any crafting talent you might be hiding. If you've ought to contribute on that front, be sure to come back and visit once you've had a chance to settle in. Oh, I will be here so much. Ask for Catless and I'll find you a niche here in the crystalline mean. You can help us keep the cogs of the city greased and turning. Your exchange with Catless has taught you about life in the Crystarium. Mayhaps you'd like to craft. Feel free to look around the workshops, but try not to distract the artisans. If they fall behind in their quotas, then everyone suffers for it. I see. Here I am. Whoa, what the fuck? Braggy! Yeah, you don't say. I'm so far away from him now. New to the city, friend. The spinning head and wide eyes give you away. Welcome. My name is Braggy, and I'm the master of these markets. They gave the district another official title, but I'm not in the habit of using it. Too florid by half. In any case, our merchants stock a range of equipment for drawn, such as yourself. So finding something in your size shouldn't be a problem. I'm sorry, did you say drawn? I'm actually I'm an aura. Must be a dialect I'm not familiar with. Right there. Let's see if we can straighten this out. See those two in front of us? The shorter one is a Hume, and the taller one is an elf. The sturdy individual one over there is a Galgant, whilst the one with the horns is a drawn like you. And then you have the large scaly chaps with long tails and a knack for raising livestock. Those would be Zune. The fuck? Which is apparently not the name you know them by. Now I'm curious to know which far-flung region you hail from. Same place as the Exarch. Ah, the same as the Exarch, eh? Well, that explains it. You don't get much further flung than that. We've had a few of your lot pass through in recent years. Despite their obvious learning, they floundered over the simplest things. But worry not. Should you find yourself confused by the local language or customs, I'll be here to answer your questions, including, where's the water? I hear that your throat is parched. Your exchange with Bragi has taught you about the people of the First. I didn't point them out earlier, but I'm sure you'll spot a Mistel or another Ronso like me sooner rather than later. Even Vis, like Captain Lena, aren't that unusual in this city. Aye, the Crystarium's long been a sanctuary for all manner of refugees, except maybe the dwarves. Those lot prefer to keep themselves to themselves, in my experience. So dwarves are gonna be just Lalafels, I'm assuming. And what were the other ones? You're a Ronso, which is pretty fucking sick. I'm glad that they referenced that. Though you look nothing like a Ronso. Those things are fucking like a mix between you and, what did you call them? A Fume? I don't even know. Zoom. But a Mistel. And then V's. Or Vise. I don't know. Anyway, onward. To the center of the town. Crystal Exarch. Well, how did you fare? Did my colleagues help you form a clearer picture of this world and its people? Well, here's an account of how the Exarch summoned the Crystal Tower in the city built by the refugees who sheltered there. Here's an account of how the Warriors of Light caused the flood, which later led to the appearance of the Sin Eaters. And here's an account of how the races of the Source are known by different names in the First. Yes, it seems you were treated to a most thorough introduction. I understand it was something of a chore, but 'twas necessary that you grasp these things before we proceed. As for the Crystal Tower's origin, you may have noticed that details were sparse. The structure is, in fact, the self-same one you know from the source, transported to the First in its entirety. It was my first attempt at breaching the boundaries between worlds, something of a trial run for your eventual crossing. And although I do not know which era I tore it from, I do know that its arrival served to set the wheels of fate in motion.